everybody, and welcome to another episode of Radio Redux. I am, of course, Kevin, welcoming you to another one of those shows. Yes, we're going to have a little discussion for the first half and then disappear off into the past for Urtheart, being joined by Skyblaze and Greyfore to discuss all things Pokémon. What are the best? What are not?
Which ones do we desire? Which ones do we?
What do we desire? That's
something very different.
That's something very different.
Where you go.
That's something very different. We're not. They're not doing that kind of list. They're not doing that kind of list. You'll just have to pass on that one.
We're saving that for.
I can't remember, and I recorded it. So.
Oh no. We'll save that one for Radio Redux 500 or something.
Somebody suggested. I'm willing to bet it was Nabal. Somebody suggested that I needed to do a Smash Pass list for Pokemon. And
it was definitely Nabal.
It was definitely Nabal.
Definitely
Nabal. Anyway, as you could hear, I am indeed joined by Urtheart for this first bit as well. Hello, Urtheart.
Yarg,
he's here. He's more or less intact.
As intact as you know.
We've took out contents insurance on him. It's fine.
Is that what undead? They don't get life insurance. They get content insurance.
Expect that in the mechanic of the next Zombie Army game, whenever that comes out in 11 million years' time.
You say that. We have announced one.
Have you?
Coming up.
When?
Zombie Army VR.
Oh, Zombie Army VR.
We haven't announced release date yet.
You haven't announced the release date yet.
But, that means it's coming
I can honestly say I had no idea about that. So you might want to speak to your marketing.
To be fair, do you pay much attention to the VR news?
It should still pop up on my feed, Zombie Army stuff, really. I'm kind of surprised that it hasn't.
I'm surprised you haven't got an email about it, at least.
I have not. I have very much not.
Things to check.
I am still getting the very occasional. Would you like to come to this VR event? No.
Oh yeah.
Not really. Not in the grand scheme of things. Thank you though. It was some time back that was relevant to my career prospects. I will say, look out for the VR showcase or whatever it is, because that's got some very good friends of mine running that, and they've started their own company now, so good for them.
Yay.
We also have the editor of LMC Cast, and all-round good egg. As long as that egg is a very rare collectible, and you can throw it at something for an obscure achievement. It's ShadowFox, everybody.
Ahoy! Yes, the Fabergé egg, when it smashes, makes a very nice sound.
Because, as you know, inside it is a USB drive, and that has all the porn on it.
On the other hand, you give ShadowFox a couple of eggs, he'll make you some nice meals with it as well.
Yes.
Mm.
Under which will be all the porn. Just in chips. Very
no Randy Pitch.
Well crafted
no Randy Pitchford
chips. Randy Pitchford.
Leaving a USB with company secrets at a medieval times, along with some other unreputable things.
This is where all the money that Sega paid us went to.
I thought that went on Borderlands.
It did go on Borderlands.
Yeah.
What was it? Was it finishing Borderlands 2? It was finishing Borderlands 2 that all the money that was supposed to be going on Colonial Marines went to, and then Sega was just like, "Freaking excuse me? That's not how that works. We're not a bank." Anyway.
They got 10 cents for that now. So.
Yeah, they have all the money. Right, so anyway, we're here. There's a couple of things we need to discuss, one of which happened some time back now.
It was a bit... I'd say there was a period where it happened, and then we were going to try and record, and then you had an event. And you had an event, which then led into illness.
Directly led to the illness, didn't it?
Yes. Me and Urtheart went to see Epic Rap Battles of History live in Birmingham at a a very confusing location, actually. It's like, oh, look, it's this very old pub, but actually it's a music venue event.
Yeah, supposedly it's quite famous, though, because when I mentioned the location to the guys in work, they'd all be like, oh, yeah, that's really popular for that kind of
very
stuff.
clearly.
Really?
Very clearly,
Okay.
because of how it was set up, you could tell.
Yeah, it's obviously built purpose for it, definitely.
But both me and Urtheart got COVID from that, so...
Yep.
And COVID wasn't even featured in the rap battle, so we were very disappointed.
No, we had a very odd one which was user requested, but we'll get onto that.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what we've been, and obviously we've been dealing with Dusk and Soof coming over.
Oh yes, there was that as well.
Yes, there was. That was. God, it already feels so long ago, but it wasn't even a month, was it?
It does. Well,
Wasn't it?
well,
Jeez.
Nintendo was saying to me the other day that she couldn't believe it had been like 3 months since I'd been up there and visited visited our Scottish friends up there. It's like it'd been 3 months, and it's like, has it? And I looked, it's like, actually it's been 4. I was like, oh,
Oh wow.
That's unfortunate. Yeah, a long time ago. Indeed, but even before that, I think, or roughly around the same time. In any case, we three descended upon Birmingham again, which is very easy for me because I literally just have to step outside the door. But
It's true.
in fact, if I raise an eyebrow, oh look, I'm in Birmingham now. Isn't that great?
Is your personal space its own sovereign nation then? The moment you have to step out your own person.
Well, you see, I am an ambassador. I am ambassador. So unfortunately, this entire house is sovereign soil for Ferrero Rocher.
Ooh.
Yes.
Good choice.
Yes, it's really spoiling us, and also the tax is far superior.
And helps
Just
you
so
fight
you know.
anyone with nut allergies.
Absolutely, I get to wake up the neighbours every day by just bellowing our national anthem. just scream at the wall, "You're really spoiling us!" And then it's all good. But yeah, no, we went to a thing that me and Urtheart go to almost every year.
Semi-regularly. You missed the year after it came back after COVID because concerns.
Yes.
But
Other things.
I've been there the last couple of years before this year working.
And it is,
because-
just before anyone gets...
Oh, yes.
Before we talk about invasions any further, what was it?
So it's a board game convention called UK Games Expo. It is a board game expo, not just games in general. So, but it's run in Birmingham, NEC, every year about the last week of May to the first week of June. Usually for 3 days. For some reason, on the Jubilee year, they decided, well, the Queen's Jubilee, that's a bank holiday. Sod it, we'll run that day as well, because no one's going to want to go to the Jubilee of the Queen, right? Dead as a doornail that day. But before COVID, yeah, we'd gone like every year in a row with another good friend of LMC.
Who?
And LMC crewmate, Vija.
Who?
You know, the one that's
The tall
fleed
one.
to another country?
Is that the rhinestone cowboy? Yeah.
Yeah.
Him. No, yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
but Vija came down, and we occasionally had other halves there too.
Well, you two did. I don't have another half to bring.
You had work. You brought work with you.
Yes.
That's what you did.
No, to be fair, work brought me and gave me a free ticket usually.
Oh yeah, it's not too bad.
Indeed.
So not your better half then.
Just
That's
for
on a
disclosure,
shelf somewhere, I'm pretty certain.
So, just for disclosure, we work for a company called Rebellion. We have a board game department called Rebellion Unplugged, and we've been there for the last few years plugging our board games because,
Which,
might as well. It's
so,
up the road.
so what he's telling you is that so they're called Rebellion Unplugged. They were there to plug, so they're liars. They're just liars.
No, because you don't need a plug socket to play it.
They're plugging their unplugged.
They're plugging their unplugged. You see, they're just contradicting themselves. Don't trust them. But yeah,
this is not sponsored though. So
this is actually that is something we will have to say on this.
Yeah.
Hashtag not an ad.
Hashtag not an ad. Hashtag not sponsored. Although technically Urtheart is, but he does work for it.
Except I'm not going to be talking during that part. I'm just going to be explaining anything that I'm allowed to via, hey, here is actual facts, etc.
Here is actual facts. Oh, that's a pity. I was hoping you'd remind me of everything that we did. Anyway, so we went.
I can remind you of stuff like the rules and stuff.
So we went to so as we say, we went to we went around the place. I confused somebody from Konami, which was fun.
As did I, to be fair. Although it was also ShadowFox's first visit as well.
It was, yeah. I was the replacement VJ for the trip.
Not quite, because we tried to get you there the year before.
He's tall and thin and has glasses on. It was close enough.
From a distance, you could confuse it. I've got a nice big hat now as well. So.
Excellent. But yes,
I tried to go a few times before, but yeah, it's usually just timing.
Yeah, we tried to go as a big group last year. Although, to be fair, last year it was cram-packed on the day we went. So, this year was a little less crammed.
Yeah, so we went on just the Friday, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes, which was the correct decision.
Yeah, because the previous year we'd gone, me, Kevin, Phil went on the Saturday, and we gave up because we couldn't move, essentially.
I feel I got called away at one, but I must admit to have been very glad that I was.
Yeah,
because it was just so. It was you literally. It was just a solid mass of people.
Yeah,
just sort of rubbing around each other, and it was a bit too much.
Yeah, you couldn't stand to look at a table because people would just keep pushing you down the aisle.
Yeah, it was very much like you were in a river.
Yeah,
the current would not let you stay.
I will say this is something that happens quite frequently at many cons we go to. This is a UK Games Expo exclusive issue. a lot of times.
Oh God! Do you remember some of the problems we had for RTX?
RTX was another bit.
So badly managed.
Yeah.
There's been a couple of MZMs in there that can also be thrown into that mix.
I think there's it's very hard to gauge how popular it is because sometimes it can be extremely packed and other times it can be a more quiet affair. And whenever they try and judge it, they get it wrong every time.
Yeah, well, you would hope sometimes, like with the tickets, they'd make sure there's the right amount of tickets are sold. But anyway, this year wasn't as bad when we went.
Yes,
thankfully, because we went on the Friday.
As a little helpful tip, go on the Friday and then. If you can get early entrance tickets over standard entry, you usually get a couple of hours that are quiet that you can actually enjoy the shows.
Or at least move to the far side before you start the battle.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, if we're going, don't take the early Friday tickets because we want them.
Yeah.
And you're just adding to our problems and getting in the way. So don't.
To be fair, when the Saturday tickets were fully sold out. I think the Friday early access tickets were sold out as well. I think there was a few Friday day tickets left. Supposedly Sunday was quite quiet as well, but still, busy enough.
If you headed in on a Saturday, we wished you well. We wished you well, and we hope that your relatives are fine with them still not seeing you back.
But yes, so to kind of explain the convention, it's primarily the main convention is free of the halls at the NEC. You have one hall which is primarily kind of board game publishers showing off the latest board games, demo tables, selling a few bits as well. Then you have one hall that's slightly more focused on selling. And then you have a third hall which is just tables for you to play board games on. And then a fourth hall for tickets this year, which is the first time.
But wait, there's more.
And your mother. No. We should really do that on an LMC for cast. I think of that at some point. Sir, the insult simulator really should, because that is very specifically words and sounds.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, they came up. Yeah, you can do a big chain, and one of the key ones is getting an "and." So
Yeah,
being a
you can delay for an extra
every time is because of that. But there is also for that the hotel as well, isn't there? The hotel on the one of the hotels on the site is usually given over to people not only just staying, but the halls of the.
There's some more halls,
more tables for people to just chill, relax, do what they want to do.
And there's a couple of rooms for like talks and stuff as well.
And
this
like a
year,
specialist tournament room as well, I think. Well, there has been in the past.
I think there have been in the past. I don't know if there was this year. The one thing I do know is in the main theatre that's in the NEC building, they also had a YouTube channel basically doing full day shows throughout all 3 days. But they were extra ticket costs as well. So I didn't bother with those.
Anyway, we went around and saw a whole bunch of stuff, didn't we?
Yes.
Yes, I think we saw most of pretty much. I think we did ourselves a proper scrying of the entire floor of.
As much as we could.
Place.
Yes.
As much as we could, yeah.
Lots of back and forthing down the aisles, seeing what we could see over the hordes.
Indeed.
We definitely found a fair few interesting things. Some things which we will probably talk about in the next time period.
Yeah, yes. Next time along. But for now, one of the main things we did was to go and visit the Rebellion stand, of course, because we wanted to see what was going on.
It was pretty much the first thing we did when we were all together.
Well, once we got into that section, it was like, oh, it's there. Well, I think we did a quick loop, and then we came back round to it.
We did a little. You and me did a loop of the sales area while we were waiting for ShadowFox.
It took me a little bit longer to get in.
And what was there was a board game that Unplugged was actually showing off. That was very interesting. And when we came back, there was a space. So we went, all right, we'll have a go at this. So tell us the game's name and what happens in it.
Sure. So the game is called Joyride. It is a racing game, but somewhere between kind of Mad Max / Destruction Derby with Mario Kart items thrown into the mix. So you have a route you have to go through. It's not really a set track because you have checkpoints you have to go through. It doesn't matter which way you go through the checkpoints as long as you go through them. But you've got your fellow riders there, and some of the mechanics are you can actually hit your... part of the fun of Joyride is you can hit your opponents with your car and cause them to do stuff. So if you hit the front of the car, you force them to turn. If you hit the back of the car, you might make them spin out. If you nudge them in the back, you might push them forwards. Or, you might crash them into the wall. Because,
might explode.
Things.
Oh, yes, you can make them explode with various items.
So we had as far as the game was, we pretty much had one experienced person. And she was semi-knowledgeable in the game when we started.
He'd seen it before. I think that was pretty much the limit of his.
I haven't actually played it fully before, but I knew the base mechanics. But a couple of people that work for the Unplugged side were there. We got taught by Lisa, and later on, Duncan, who's one of the two designers, along with Pete. Came to chat to us about it as well, especially for the final. But we'll get to that.
Yes, because in terms of it took us that one game, and we kind of pretty much had a good grasping of the rules, as it were.
Yeah. So. By the time we were halfway, because the whole point is you do this one lap, but going through these checkpoint gates.
You can have as many laps as you want, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for the purpose of the demo, it's kept to one lap because other people are waiting.
But by the time we were halfway round that lap, we'd kind of got the gist of this is how this works in terms of the tactical element, and our game really did become a extreme exercise in tactical play.
Yeah, because we kind of had a bit of a dilemma of. Well, one of us was quite. I think it was ShadowFox was quite far ahead.
Yeah.
I was basically in a position of winning by the end. I just had to.
ShadowFox had the ability to get there within the next turn.
I think it was like 2 turns.
It was one or 2 turns, and the rest of us were like a quarter of the lap behind with our turns to come. So it came a point of how do we get somebody in a position where they can stop ShadowFox crossing the line,
or at least make it closer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
or just move it around. And it ended up being like I think I
remember it quite well. It was a team effort. I was quite happy to even sabotage myself if it was because it was one of those. It was a 1 in a million shot kind of thing. It was like if all this lines up.
Yeah, so it needed me to move to a position which would seemingly be,
irrelevant.
Irrelevant, but close enough that Earth could hit my car and turn it and move it.
So
to
you
such
were
a
in
degree.
ShadowFox's way.
So I was in ShadowFox's way, or I at least had a line of sight on him to do something or intercept him.
You fired a rocket. That was what it was.
That was it. Yes.
Yes, and then it was effectively like a body block with the car.
You body blocked him, but ended up
facing the wrong way.
We both ended up facing the wrong way.
No, ShadowFox was still facing the right way.
I was still pretty much guaranteed. So it was like 2 turns ahead. It was like no one's game. After then 1 turn later, you had been knocked into position you'd moved to a position, been knocked into a position, able to fire a rocket at me to stop me, and then get into another position. And then it was like, all right, now it's between me and Kev, but you have to.
We were like nose to nose
at
one point, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, no, it was it was the back of your car with the nose of ShadowFox's car.
Yeah, it was an interesting situation.
But what happened was it was a case of it was ShadowFox almost guaranteed to win because the way the game works is you depending on what gear you're in is how many dice you get to roll to see how far you go. So I think you were in first gear, so you had to shift up to second gear to get another dice.
Yeah, that was again one of the trade-offs in order to actually be able to get into position was I had to go down through the gears on a previous turn.
You shot ShadowFox, which forced him down a gear anyway.
Yeah, but I had also had to do something in order to get into that situation, which meant I had gone down, so I was low on gears.
Well, no, you were on reverse.
He crashed into me, so he was down into.
Oh no, he'd have been gear. First or reverse.
At which point it was a case of
you can't turn to face the line.
Can't turn. However, while you do pick up various power-ups along the way, one of which is the rockets, I believe, which I mentioned.
There's rockets, mines,
oil spills, and nitro.
And nitro, which is the important one here.
Basically, imagine any kind of power-up that appeared in Knight Rider, and basically you got there. So, yeah. I had it was still highly likely that ShadowFox would be able to sort of maneuver his way past. I would have been able to.
I would have shifted up 1 gear, gotten 2 dice roll, and basically, unless it had been like a double 1, I'd have been across the line.
Then so Urtheart had pretty much sacrificed himself. I think he was in a wall.
I was out of the race.
You were in a wall, weren't you? At that point,
you still had to get like the last checkpoint, but you sacrificed your checkpoint to get into position.
Just to try and do this because it really was a case of we were just interested to see if this could be done.
Yeah.
Because at one point to say before we started doing this convolution, we had figured out that ShadowFox has won then because none of us could get to him. None of us got a line of sight. None of us can.
It's like when we play any board game. You kind of look. It's like Red Dragon in. Who's got the money?
Who's got the most
Turbo.
health? And
Turbo's got the money. That was his mistake. How dare you start being successful immediately? Well, we'll soon see about that.
Yeah, there's
So-
always the gang up on the leader kind of effect going on in these games.
But one of the power-ups was the thing I had in my bag for a while. I think I got it like halfway round or something.
You got it fairly early, yeah.
Yeah, which was nitrous, and nitrous was like double the scores.
No,
Double-
it gives you
get
an
a
extra
separate
dice.
die.
extra die. Well,
Which
And isn't it like it's a 1 through 4, and then 2 of the sides are you blow up?
No, it's a 2 to 4, and I think 1 or 2 of the sides, I can't remember.
there's
off the top of my
risk
head,
involved.
there's risk. Basically,
risk
it's
involved,
you get to go extra. It's a bonus die on top of your normal one, so you get to go further. But there's a risk you might just explode, and exploding, you take damage, you go back down a gear. It's
And
bad.
But considering this is this Mad Max style car,
Yeah. And it's do or die at this point to win the race. So
absolutely,
do or die, effectively.
yeah.
But we had to clarify one rule because it's like, well, you can use nitro to add to your roll.
Hang on,
Can you use it in reverse?
Yeah, it makes no sense. But can you reverse nitrous?
I think even the guy in charge was kind of put his head hit like thumbs to his head like I guess. Like, there's nothing.
Bear in mind, he designed the game.
Yes,
The guy we were talking to. So
And-
it's his call.
Yeah, it was his call, and he said yes, so we did it, and I just got over the line, didn't I?
You literally rolled exactly what you needed.
Exactly what was needed, and afterwards, the Rebellion staff went, "We have a new way of winning. we have an example we can actually tell other people of a way to win that nobody had done before." So it was like, okay, sure thing. Glad to be of assistance.
But hey, I mean that's the point, that it's meant to be exciting and
This is a game that's not released yet. It's like, I mean,
It's
visually, all the models and stuff were
yeah, it's in-
fantastic.
so the
They-
version you
double
saw was it's a double-sided map as well.
The double-sided map and double-sided cards, which were cluttered and uncluttered for visual
Yeah, there
clarity.
we had some thinking ahead in terms
So, yeah,
of accessibility, which we all praised. Actually, we all praised them
Yes.
for it.
Yeah.
'Cause it was really
so
nicely designed.
It's been a big focus of all of our stuff. We've had an accessibility manager now in the team for a while, and they've been very focused on making sure that wherever we can, we do that kind of stuff. Like, what else are we going to use the back of the card for? Let's use it to make an accessible and easier to read version. Why not?
It's a more simplified version, which is more friendly towards kids. Those sort of ones as well.
It's a little bit more work, but the payoff is a lot more customers if you're in a business sense.
Bear in mind, accessibility might not always mean like for disabled people or stuff. It might be for someone who is currently trying to rock a kid in their arm, so they need to be able to do everything with one hand.
Indeed. Although we should point out at this point, board games are not a substitute for good parental care.
No.
Okay. Okay.
And don't
putting
let you.
putting a Yu-Gi-Oh card in defense position is not the same as calling out a babysitter. I'm sorry. It's
And
Also-
just remember, if you
that's
give
not what
that
Pot
if
of
you
Greed
give that
does
kid,
either.
no, I mean, if you give that kid a Magic the Gathering card, that's going to cost you
Confuse
later
them.
down the line
Yeah,
a lot of money.
Also, don't let them near Pandemic, because those cubes are so edible looking.
Indeed. Or what's the one with the desert themed one that you guys really like? With the
Century Spice Road.
Spice Road. Yeah, don't let them
yeah.
anywhere near that. Those aren't spicy. Those are wood.
They aren't edible.
Those are wood.
To be fair, I feel like wood is slightly safer than plastic, but only slightly.
I mean, only slightly. I mean, in the sense that technically, I guess it's carbon.
It's organic, vaguely.
What have you got? What have you got for dinner? An inanimate carbon rod. Excellent. Well, it's less dangerous than the plastic pieces of this mousetrap board game I was about to force feed our toddler. Stick it in the microwave. We might as well have it. Warm.
Just make sure there isn't a hidden Monopoly piece in there.
Oh,
Can you
Yeah.
imagine? Can you imagine though? Just like you said about Magic the Gathering, because you gave Magic the Gathering cards to the kid, and that's like their entire thing. Turn around and like get ready to like go off to college, university. It's like How am I going to pay for this? You have been saving for this your whole life. Or every
notice.
Yes, you haven't noticed, but every action, every trade you have done, has led you to this moment, where you most definitely have a massive nest egg of what you're talking about, just playing the card game. You have failed yourself, and you have failed this family. I think at this point, what I'm going to do is say, that's the end of this part, guys. I will let you head off with maybe a little bit of a musical interlude, after which we will be back with more of Urtheart, Skyblaze and Greyfore discussing Pokemon. See you in a bit.
Bye.
Hey.
Okay, so let's start with the more negative stuff. I think. Before we get to the big one, I'm going to go with. I also don't feel like one of my bigger problems. I don't feel this one has that many memorable locations compared to previous games where you had these kind of set locations that were like, and here is the new city, because you had to go in from one way or something like that.
I mean, there'll be some cities which do have like multiple ways which you can get into it, but again, there's nothing that's sort of the big set piece of, you know, you walk in. There's this. I mean, was it X and Y that had the massive like Eiffel Tower type thing?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So again, you can describe that, and it's like, but I can't really properly describe any of the other cities.
There's like the place with the big school, and then the other towns are just like
dust around
generic towns. That there's some shops in them.
Whereas at least like in Sword and Shield, you had like the one city where you destroy a mural, and at least you remember that city. And there's the city that you have to visit multiple times because it's in the middle, and at least it's memorable because you have to go there regularly.
And in things like Shining Pearl, you've got the city that's got all Veilstone, the one that's got all the sheer rock faces. And there's the one with the mine, and it's like they have a personality. The towns in this don't seem to have a personality outside of Mediterranean town.
Yeah, and I think, because for your example, Diamond and Pearl, all the cities are themed around their gym leader. And that's generally true throughout most of the rest of the series, whereas they've almost not bothered with this one.
A lot of this gen felt really rushed.
That's generally been the agreed upon, that this game was rushed, especially considering. Well, we might as well just tackle it now. Bugs and crashes.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say I've been pretty lucky. I've not had it crash, but it has had a lot of slowdown.
So I will say, if you didn't play within the first 3 months, you probably will escape most of the crashes.
We were a bit late to the party when it released, so we managed to avoid those.
Yeah, because on release it was crashing daily.
I've seen videos. But even after they've applied all the fixes, the frame rate issues remain.
And that's something they will probably never fix.
Yeah.
And
it's just not good enough for a game from a major developer, a major publisher. They can do better than this. We know that they can do better than this.
We know they can, but I think the question is, are they bothered to? They've already got your money.
Yeah.
Why else did they need to do anything?
The Pokemon games have always had code that has been held together with duct tape and string. I mean, you look at the first Gen 1, and some of the glitches in that are, whoa, hey, hi, Missing No, how you doing?
But they've still never generally been to the point of the average person will find them.
Yeah, I mean, they were kind of like tucked away in a corner. You had to actually make an effort to find them. Where these are right out in the open and right in your face.
Yeah, and even with, like, if you look at Shining Diamond and Pearl, the re-releases one, the two major bugs they've had in that, they've just gone, right, well, sod that, we're just going to make sure that you can't infect the rest of the series with it. I don't know if you know about those bugs.
No, not me.
There are 2 Pokemon that you cannot transfer in or out of the game because they completely break. Well, they're completely broken. One of them is due to a cloning glitch you could technically do with it.
Oh.
That was a bit weird. But that one was kind of known already. But the other one is because the developers, because it wasn't developed by the Pokemon Company.
No.
The people that developed it screwed up so much with Spinder that, if you could import your Spinder, it would break it and you would never be able to recover it.
Oh, damn.
Wow.
Because they reversed the code on it by accident.
Whoopsie doodle.
Which means that you can't transfer Spinder into it or out of it. You have to catch one in there if you want to complete the Pokedex.
Jeez.
And it is super rare. And even then, the game is still fully playable, whereas definitely on release, Scarlet and Violet was touch and go at a lot of points. And even now, there are still bugs like that. There's a chance that your entire game will be wiped and any Pokemon on it, gone. Which, if you're bringing in Pokemon that you've... Like, I've still got Pokemon from Diamond and Pearl, the original Diamond and Pearl, that I keep, and I'm scared to bring them in and out.
There's also... So, the Switch is on a mobile processor. It's not the most powerful console in the world. But if you are careful with programming, you can do some remarkable things with it. I mean, they managed to fit all of The Witcher 3 on it, and it runs pretty decently. Yes, it has some issues.
And Nintendo have been known to optimize their console far better than any other studio out there. Especially with some of their games. And I agree that it feels weird that one of their most important titles, because let's be honest, Pokemon probably makes them more money than Mario does these days.
Yep.
Probably.
And how they can let that get to this kind of standard is concerning, other than the fact they know people will pay it, we don't need to make the effort. That's the only thing I can think of.
It's also really weird if you compare it to Legends Arceus, where it's like, most of these issues aren't in this game, and it's a fairly similar structure.
Yeah.
What went wrong?
Yes. Well, this is the thing. I think they were being developed fairly simultaneously by the sounds of it. I think I can happily quash any kind of rumour that... Because there was a load of people going saying, well, yeah, obviously Scarlet and Violet was being developed for the Switch successor. No, it really wasn't. No. It really wasn't.
As a hardware tech writer, I'm pretty sure, like 99.9% certain that that's not the case.
And even then, there's such a huge fan base on install base already on the Switch. Even if they did it like dual, so it would work with both, you would want to make sure it still worked smoothly on their previous hardware, because none of their previous like cross-console games ever had that issue.
No.
I played both the Zeldas that were cross-platform on their older consoles, and they worked just fine. I didn't enjoy one of them, but that's a personal choice. I didn't enjoy Breath of the Wild, but I still played it on the Wii U, and I still completed it. And it was obvious from some of the stuff in there, it was designed for the Wii U originally, but, you know, that's not the point. It just feels very weird, and I will tell you, the DLC is much, much worse with the slowdown.
Oh, dear.
The newest area... One of the areas is like a frozen area, so it's got snow constantly. And it just... I don't think I can ever get it to hit 30 frames a second in that area.
Bloody hell.
Now, admittedly, Nibal will claim that my Switch is probably cursed, and to be honest, the amount of hours, it's probably running itself ragged, but... and I have to use it for work purposes as well, so... but, you know, that should not be the case. Why is this not being flagged?
Yeah.
And it just sounds like they don't care.
I really don't get it. But yeah, my Switch also got quite... It was originally bought for me when I had to go into hospital, because my recovery time was like 2 and a bit weeks from surgery. And I wouldn't be able to move around a lot, so Greyfore bought me my Switch, so I would have something to do, so I didn't go screamingly insane. And that was like all I did for 2 weeks. Solid, was just play on my Switch.
And one thing I would say is definitely be a big detractor. I've actually just sort of pulled up the Switch, just have a quick look through in terms of the options. There are no graphical options to try and help with this.
No, that somewhat makes sense for the Switch on whole because it's a standardized format.
Yeah, you don't usually get extensive graphical options on consoles. I mean, the PS5 has the performance mode and the graphical mode or whatever they're called.
But they have, various variations of their console to consider. The Switch doesn't. It's very much core hardware. So I understand them not having those options, but then it also then begs the question of, well, if it can't handle it, then
why make it?
Why, or at least tone it back a bit?
I mean, you'd be able to talk about this better than I would, but I'm pretty sure that there are things that could have been done, optimizations that could have been made.
I'll be honest, not my speciality personally, but I've seen what our team that worked on porting games that everyone, even reviewers, have said this should not be able to play on a Switch, and yet they've done it.
Yeah,
and they've made sure the priority has been making sure it runs well. Yes, the graphics may take a massive tank compared to the PS4 and Xbox One versions, but you expect that.
Yeah,
I've heard plenty of people tell me, "Oh, the Switch is just as powerful as Xbox One and PlayStation 4."
No, it isn't.
It's not.
It absolutely is not.
And then they point to stuff like, "Well, look at Mario Odyssey." It's like, no, that's just very clever graphic design and art design.
Yeah.
Same with Witcher 3. It does not look as good as it does on PS4. Yeah. It just doesn't. But it still plays well.
Yeah. Now, admittedly, the other thing I've oddly noticed is it works worse in docked mode than in handheld mode, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's just backwards. How did they even manage that?
Yeah, and I think this is the big thing that holds the game back for me.
Yeah.
I don't think the game is inherently a bad game. I think a lot of the choices they've made for this game are going to be good or bad, are mostly preference. Like the open world, I understand why they want to move towards that. That's what the kids want. Kids are wanting more open worlds.
But they need to put more into it to make it worth being an open world.
While true, I still think it's a step in the right direction. I do think that Arceus has done it better.
So I disagree. I don't think Pokemon works. The traditional Pokemon format, I don't think it works that well in open world.
That's fair. I think there's pros and cons to it. And all I'm thinking is preference coming from newer generations going into the game do want the more open world. And I will say there's definitely benefits to the open world. Certainly from hunting, like when I have done shiny hunts. Or, to give one particular example, when I was purposely trying to breed a very special Pokemon for someone at LMC. Guess which one that was. It was nice of the fact that I had an open world that rather than having to just constantly go up and down a cycle route, I could just run around the open world and just go and pick up stuff and add to my collection. And I would just see random shiny Pokemon here and there just from running about while I was doing something else that I was planning on doing. And that was kind of nice because it meant that I could do two things at once. But I agree that I think the structure that the older games gave was much more beneficial for those that needed that learning curve.
It's also beneficial when it comes to telling a story.
There is that as well.
I think. I mean, it's a difficult thing because of you're going to talk about like development times and splitting up teams and things. But if they divided it into two lines, where one is the traditional Pokemon format, and the other follows the Legends example, and goes down a more open world route, but keeps that, giving quests and so on.
And Legend still managed to tell a story.
Yeah.
It just had to break it up. But there were times you could just go, sod it, I'm just going to go explore.
Yeah, and I think that the problem with Scarlet and Violet is that it was trying to do both things at once, and as a consequence did neither of them that well.
I would agree on that one. I also think one of the other biggest weaknesses of it was just there was very little to compel you to do most of it. Like I said, Arven's quest wasn't that bad because you had goals, and they were boss fights. They were actually some of the better fights in the game. And what was quite nice is you were also double teaming them.
And also, if you're me, I wanted to help the doggy.
Yes.
Yes, there was that as well.
Poor doggy!
and by doing these fights, it helps to open out the world more because you get more abilities that let you do more things with your partner Pokemon.
Exactly. I think the only problem for me from that quest was it wasn't always clear which one the next one I should go to was next.
Yep.
Because I will say I went to the one in the desert and I got smashed.
Yeah.
You did the same thing, didn't you, at one point?
More or less, yeah. So I think I attempted one of the star bases out of order. I managed to beat it, just...
And I was like, the other one is the lower level range.
But no, you don't.
No.
This was the thing. I left the bug gym till last. Because I just went in a circle.
Yeah, as I say, it's one of the things. If you go like in around the map in the wrong sort of direction, you're going up against things far harder than they should be for yourself.
Yeah. It's so bizarre because the Terror Raids have a star system. Why didn't they just use something similar for the gyms and the Titans and so on?
Yeah,
if
level
nothing
scaling.
else, just kind of get the characters to mark on your map. This is the next one to go to because it's the next difficulty one.
See,
something just as simple as that.
The only thing that you've got that kind of tries to give you that is when you go to the Pokestops, you have a chat with a lady that's manning the Poke Center part, and you can ask her, what should I do next? And she'll tell you what she feels that you should do next.
But she lies.
I never noticed that.
Yeah. But
I genuinely never noticed that.
But the problem is, that as well isn't always right. So we'd had a guide to one hand as well, just to sort of give us an idea as to what the best order to do things in. And as I say, I'm down to like the last couple of star bases. They're saying, oh, you should do this one next. And it's like, okay, cool, I'll go and do that one. And then Skyblaze is like, you need to be like this level for it. If you do this one, you only have to be like 2 or 3 levels higher. This one, you need to be like 7 or 8. And it's like,
but I wonder if that does it based on proximity then, rather than...
That's what I was wondering as well.
Yeah. I do have one other major complaint, and that is actually with the gym leader arc. Less the gym leaders themselves. I don't think any of the gym leaders are particularly bad. The Elite Four, I think, are quite good in general. The champion feels very throwaway.
oh.
To the point where most people, if you started with Skeledirge, reckon she's quite easy to one-shot with Skeledirge throughout the entire fight. And I did that on my first go. Now, to be fair, your rival, who I continuously pronounce her name wrong, so I'm not going to try and pronounce it.
Yeah, I can't remember, because I've obviously, because it's been such a while since I've gone back to it, and only done so recently just to get myself a refresher for this. I've not come across her again, so I can't remember, apart from the fact that I just don't like her.
Yeah, she feels a bit forced.
Yeah.
It's one of the problems I've had with rivals over a lot of the recent generations, is your rival doesn't have a good reason for being your rival. Like, oddly enough, Sword and Shield one was okay. He was your best friend and kept pushing you, and slightly got more and more bitter until the post-game.
That's one of the reasons I quite like Sword and... I forgave Sword and Shield's story because it did that.
Yeah, and it had other interesting moments in it as well. But then, like, there's a similar thing where it's like you notice all of the, like, bad guy gangs have become less criminal and more just ruffians.
Yeah, they're less, we're doing like illicit trade, opening up like gambling dens and stuff like this, and it's like no, we're just like, guys who like trying to take Pokemon or just trying to like pressure people because
well, in this case it was like
cool.
it's just the emo kids from school.
Yeah.
It was like, well, wow, you're a bit pathetic, aren't you?
It just feels a bit anticlimactic, almost. But what I will say is that, yeah, the champion of the person who's supposed to be basically the person you fight after beating the Elite Four, has no personality, just isn't interesting.
That's disappointing.
But that's because I feel part of that is because your main fight for that series is then really against your rival and not against them. But then just make the rival the final boss of the Elite Four. It's interesting is the Elite Four are actually quite good. I don't... Skyblaze, have you beaten the Elite Four yet?
I think I got to the Elite Four. I don't think I've actually beaten them.
Yeah, the Elite Four... Okay, I won't spoil. There is a big surprise in the Elite Four.
Okay.
A surprise and a half. There are two people you will recognise from the Elite Four, or you should recognise from the Elite Four, and one of them you will have met. There's one that's just like a complete surprise.
Okay.
I think I know what one of these is. Yeah.
You probably do because it's nowadays not a particularly
the world's worst kept secret.
If it's the one I'm thinking of, her theme tune is also a banger.
No, that's actually not the one I'm thinking
of.
Because it's not a her. The two surprises I'm thinking of are he's.
Okay.
You will have met both of them, or you should have met both of them. You might have skipped one depending on what you've done in the game. But, yeah. The Elite Four are really well designed, they're really good, they're really fun fights. And then the champion fight is just completely anticlimactic.
So I don't think we're entirely alone in that because of the structure of it, it's like there's no... It doesn't feel like there's a compelling reason to actually go through everything, and it's easy to just wander away from it.
And it's a shame as well, because once you've done all three stories, you then unlock the final story, which you can probably guess where that's taking you.
I mean, I already know, but
yeah,
it's like they've gatekept the best part of the story behind a lot of boring nonsense.
Yeah, I would agree. What's the more interesting thing I did find though was I watched a YouTube video quite recently where someone pitted all of the gym leaders and Elite Four and all of that against each other with their teams to see who were actually the best trainers.
Mm-hmm.
And oddly enough, one of the Elite Four members in this game is better than their own champion.
That's pretty cool.
Like, consistently lost against their own Elite Four member. And it's just like, okay. But yeah, the final boss of that arc is your rival in the end. Because they're like, champion versus champion, come on, do it! And yeah, it's just not compelling.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
Like, the final fights of the other two feel better. I won't spoil the one for Team Star's one for you just yet, but there's actually two final fights in that one. You might be able to guess one of them. Yeah. And then you've obviously beat Arvin for the Titans one.
Mm-hmm.
But that feels like, hey, my dog, I want to check my dog's at full strength.
Yeah.
We're going to properly battle you. And that's fine. But, okay, so where do you think you would score the game? If you, like, however you wish to score the game.
I'd give it a 3 out of 5.
Okay, so 6 out of 10-ish.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I'd probably go like a 7 out of 10, 3.5 sort of thing out of 5. Because I'm enjoying it a lot, but it does feel that it needs something more to really sort of compel me to go and do a lot of the stuff that's in there. Because it just kind of feels like a lot of potentially needless chores that need doing just so you can get into the full meat of the game itself.
I kind of agree with you on the 7 out of 10 side. I think that the game adds quite a lot of nice stuff for the variety. I actually do really like the whole terrestrialization giving like another kind of universal benefit to all Pokemon. And actually I think they've mostly use that in the online events that they've done, because I've done every single of the Mightiest Marks that have come out throughout the entire series. Some have been good, some have been frustrating, but at least it's a goal that you work towards, and they do utilize the, giving a Pokemon a third type to the maximum for those. And then you've got those Pokemon ready to use as they were in those quite difficult fights as well.
I mean, so far this run, I obviously realised we obviously talked a lot about the different aspects of the game itself, but there's one thing I know we haven't touched on, which just proves just how kind of either tacked on or not quite useful it is. Picnics.
Now, you see, oddly enough, from my perspective, that's been one of the most useful things added.
I've just never felt compelled to use them.
And I will say that's probably because where it comes into its most useful is breeding and shiny hunting. Because it makes both of those so much easier than it's ever been in any other game.
So that's one of the things. If you're the sort of person who is in a sense, a completionist who wants that full decks, who wants obviously the shinies because they look cool, or just for bragging rights and things, then that's great. But for me, I'm not too fussed on that. I just want to go and play the game and enjoy the game. I don't mind if I don't have a full dex. I'd like to grab what I can, but I'm not going to be beat up if I don't get most of what's in there.
I like playing with the Pokemon and giving them food and
Yeah.
And the general bonuses you get out of it are quite nice as well. But yeah, certainly and I will say, I've only really started shiny hunting in this game because it's made it so much more easy to do. And I made a list, about a year ago now, about these are the Pokemon I really, really like, or I really like the shiny version of. If they're in Scarlet, I'm going to try and shiny hunt them just because it's a nicety to have. And so far, I've managed to fill out a good 30, 40 of those Pokemon, and then get another 30 or 40 that I wasn't expecting, just because the way the sandwiches work have just meant I've been lucky. So it's I admit that it's a 50-50 one. The other thing I'm a bit 50-50 is you starting with your legendary Pokemon at the beginning of the game.
It's one of those yes but no, because yes, you start with a legendary, and I mean it's so early on, it doesn't feel like it's going to be a spoiler or anything, but just the method in which you get that Pokemon just feels so silly.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like I'm glad with that kind of thing they're trying something new. The biggest problem, of course, is because it's integral to the movement and the way you play the game, that Pokemon is stuck on that game. Same as with Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, your partner Pokemon is stuck on that game.
Yeah.
So I've had to go and catch a second Koraidon, which you can do. But I just had to have that. And then I've had to catch more to trade for the Miraidon from another person's game, just to make sure that I can have that Pokedex completion. I should mention that I had a full Pokedex before, or near enough a full Pokedex going into Scarlet and Violet. So my aim was to try and keep my Pokedex full. So, yeah. I would agree that a 7 out of 10 is about the right score, because I bring it down. The bugs and crashes definitely bring it down. That was until the DLC released.